Hello, welcome to the Future of Fashion, the podcast series that is hosted by the Exponential Academy. At the Exponential Academy, we inspire industries, industry leaders to keep up with the pace of technology. In other words, we change the culture of industries and organizations to keep up with the rapid exponential pace at which technology has been developing. I'm really happy to have a very young, innovative entrepreneur in our podcast today. He has started a tech driven textile company which designs and manufactures textiles using technology. With the help of technology, he is able to produce textiles in a much more efficient, transparent, and a far smaller footprint. We'd like to welcome Borre Akkersdijk to our podcast. His journey started at the Design Academy in Eindhoven, which is one of the leading design colleges or institutions in the world. From there, he went on to FIT New York, another leading organization. He came back to the Netherlands and won the Young Designer Award at the Dutch Design Awards. And he's been in the forefront of innovation. Apart from his company, he is an avid speaker, change agent, and a thought leader. Welcome to the podcast, Borre.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Lovely, lovely. Thank you. So before we get into the discussion, Borre, I'd love for our listeners to get an understanding of your background, your journey. What brought you today to where you are? If you could share a little bit about that.
Well, yeah, I think every day brings you further. So it's not one thing that brought me here, but I think most of all, it's from young when I was a kid, like a lot of curiosity. So it's not like that I come from a family where we have a textile factory or textile company, or that my parents were in this field. But I think I was always very curious for the things around us, the things that I was wearing, the things that were made out of textile. So, in elementary school and high school, it was more creativity, drawing, attracted to other people's creations. A little bit of Lego. I always give some credits to great children's toys, of course. Started understanding that you can be good in a lot more things than in language or mathematics or topography or like the things that are in normal schools. Suddenly I understood that I could be very good in color and I could be very good in shape. And I figured out that there was a whole world next to the set system.
So, what we believe at the Academy is technology is fantastic, and it's young innovators like you that would leverage technology. And that's why we are talking, because the minute we put out the word out there, your name came up like up there saying talk to Borre. Now, what is the technology that you are most excited about that's developing in the world around us? And what do you think that technology can do to the industry?
Well, to be frank, I think technology is a means to an end. I think it is all about the responsibility we have as humans to think about if we make things that we make it if there is already a user. But there is a lot happening with the technology and digitization, especially in the textile industry. You have to realize that the textile industry is a sort of the last global industry that we all use every day. We all wear clothing. We all use different products with textiles, and all day, every day, that the industry is not digitized. This industry was already scaled to a global scale way before digitization started. So also a lot of the pie was already like shared, and everybody wants to safeguard their piece of the pie. So I think it is important to understand that digitization can help with making the supply chain more efficient, making sales more efficient. but digitization mostly also leads to hyperconsumption, and hyperconsumption is exactly the thing that we don't want even more in textile usage. Well, in textile sales, let me correct myself, because hyper consumption leads to hyper moments of sale. Hyper moments of sale don't lead to necessarily to hyper usage of the products that are sold. Actually, a lot of things are sold and not even used. And especially if you look at all the steps in the supply chain. The fibers are sold to the yarn manufacturers. They make yarns. The yarn manufacturers sell to the textile manufacturers. They make textiles. The textile manufacturers sell to the garment manufacturers. They make garments, and the garment manufacturers want to sell to the end consumer. In all these steps, there's overproduction because they make their margin, and it's cheaper to overproduce and throw away than to figure out what you exactly need, or first look at what you need and then produce. So this system is broken. This is a linear system that we need to see how we can build a separate system next to it that is focused on usage always. And if it's not used, then it's pushed back and circular. So like it's pushed back to the step before. Digitization can help with that, because with digitization, you can make an infrastructure where we know where everything is at. But these innovations are just a means to an end. Blockchain is a perfect means to an end. And I'm in textiles, so I do interior textiles, I do architecture textiles, we do automotive, and we also do some fashion. But most of all, we focus on industries that produce the moment that they already know what the product will come. So no overproduction, no pre-production. So that was why we moved more out of fashion. But if you look into fashion, as those are great examples of massive overproduction, it is hyper innovation and hyper digitization, but it is not with any conscious decisions for people and planet. So innovations need to go hand in hand with responsibility, and responsibility leads to, like, we need legislation, and we need people to understand why and what they can and cannot do. So I believe that hyper digitization in transparency in the supply chain, digital product passports, but especially also the transparency in where are all the raw materials, where are the production facilities, where is overcapacity, so that you can really efficiently start to fill in all these gaps. And you can use systems for that. So same as you have SaaS systems, software as a service, we are creating more of a task system, textile as a service. But every textile producer wastes 40% of his textile, if you like, his base raw material. So like, I think that's sort of the interesting direction that I of the interesting comparisons I want to make.
Absolutely. I think you're absolutely right. What you said is technology can do a lot. The second part you mentioned is the conscience and legislation. But I also think there's a very important aspect of like how do we design the entire process, right? Because what we see today is if it's technology that's telling you something, then people don't question it. If it's a person telling you something, then you have this whole negotiation and this. And if you design a process where you put the technology in the right place, maybe this whole urge to overconsume may go down. I don't know. But let's keep our fingers crossed there. One thing you mentioned in your website is you said the industry is not moving fast enough. Do you have areas where you think we can kind of step on the gas a bit and get it moving faster, at least in the same direction?
I understand what you mean. Like you want to speed up technology and to speed up change. But I think a big part of that is a sort of how can we make sure that the understanding of why we make what, and the understanding of why we buy things and why we use things and how we use them, how that becomes an understanding of new connotation of the relationship between the brand and the user. Already the word consumer, I think, is wrong, because it's not about the consuming moment. That's just the moment of sale. So the relationship between the brand and their user is now the moment of sale. You're my consumer, you buy, done. Where I believe you say, like, well, you're my client maybe, but you consume the product, and that's not how it goes. You use the product. So the moment of sale is the first interaction where you say, okay, I pay because I want to use it. And then the relationship starts. And that's where product as a service is way more interesting. Because the moment if it's all about usage, first of all, you want to make a better product because people are going to use it and you want them to be able to use it as long as possible. If you pay for usage, it is a long game, not a short game. With BYBORRE, I'm creating a software solution, a textile as a service solutions where you only produce what you use. You make samples, we rapid prototype so that it is almost as fast as if you select a sample. You only make what you want to make. You can already produce from 50 meters. It's unique. So those things will come. But most of all, it is about how do we change the narrative of how people look at products and what is cool. And I think that is interesting to look at. I remember my on my first trips to Japan, where in the secondhand stores and especially like the vintage stores, the garments that were hand finished and made, like and the holes were made, were way more expensive than the new garments because they said, well, somebody put energy in it. There's a story in it. The breaking was a story, the making was a story. And I believe that that is something that I've seen in my own practice, but also in the last over the last decade that I built my own brand. I was in Dover Street Market. We sold very well in Japan and in the States and in Europe. But people like why they bought BYBORRE garments back then, and we stopped for a very good reason, the brand, but why we made garments back then, people bought it because there was a certain aesthetic that people didn't know. So it was a story. When you wear something from us, it was a story. When you make textiles with us, it tells a story about your product. And I stopped the brand because one of all, I think we proven our point that we can reach all the top shops and that the standard is high enough. But also because I believe that with BYBORRE, the change was not in our own brand. How can we sell more? No, the change was in how can we open source our mindset of how do we make textiles. I wanted everybody to be able to make better textiles. So I said, how can we digitize our supply chain and how can we make sure that it's accessible to everybody? So I had kids that were like 16, never made textile before, coming in the studio, and 2 weeks later, they made a sample, they made a garment, and they had a whole story around it that it was a fully transparent production line. The yarns came from there, the textile came from there, the product was made there, and I was like, holy shit, it took me 10 years to be able to get there myself. And they walk in and it's like this, and it was the proudest moment I had because suddenly that is the starting point. Now you can already do good and be transparent from the get-go, and that's where I believe a sort of like digitization can help, but it will not solve the problem that we have to re-educate our generations that use product as it is a throwaway item.
I remember having met a lot of the Gen Zs and the new generations that are coming. Yes, there is the kick when they buy something new, but quite a few of them said we don't have all the information to stop, right? Like you said, I mean, there's so much, like 40% of the stuff that's not even worn, it's still in their cupboards. Can we tap into the abundance of clothes people have bought but not used? Can we change the narrative?
Well, the narrative can only be changed by the brands that have the marketing power behind it. Because it is about storytelling, and marketing is storytelling. What we should not forget is not because you and me have a great idea that is going to change and reach the world. It is all the big brands that push hundreds of millions a year in what we think we want to have and who we think we need to be. The biggest sport campaigns, like everything around the Olympics, it's all about like a sort of who am I aspired to be? And that means that some of these big brands need to take the decision to say, like, well, the linear system that we've created to make product, sell product, and make margin is maybe not the system that we hope to use in the future. And how do we build a secondary system next to that that is based on community, working together, first understanding where testing before you buy it, buy everything on production, so you have to wait for 4 6 months, but that there is zero overproduction or underproduction, or even if there's underproduction, that's part of the risk. You get your money back. Not everything is for granted, and that we can have whatever we want. And I think that's a reality. If we look at the world is broken.
That's what we believe is the success of the companies of the future, Borre. What you said. You said every piece of textile that people buy from Borre has a story that you will not say blatantly, but people will feel it. And that's because of the energy of the leadership, the energy of the company, and how you actually make that consumer or the user. They are getting more and more clever. They will get to know. The second thing you said is the community. That's another thing we believe at the Academy is companies of the future will have a huge community that understands the purpose of why we exist as an organization. I mean, your generation and generations to follow will save us. If the new companies that come on board, like you said, has a story that is not just about buy more, make more money, and move on. I believe that if there is a strong purpose, um,
Yeah,
and I don't know, that's I'm just feeling a sense of hope here. I don't know what your thoughts are.
I think you should always have a sense of hope, and things can always change, and otherwise things break to be rebuilt. Like, even that, like, I think some things that we see as hope look like solutions that are a counterbalance to what is out of balance. And yeah, I'm always hopeful. I see more chances than I've ever seen before in the textile industry, but that's also because I'm just seeing an industry that will highly benefit from the digitization that is coming and the innovations that are coming.
That's a lovely point. Maybe we can bring our last question. What would be one piece of advice you would give an industry leader in the fashion world, um, that they need to take into consideration to move forward?
What I want to say, like, to all the ones that are in power now, is understand that the superstars of the future are gonna be the advocates for people and planet. Are like, it is the ones that are gonna, that have been fighting for balance in the last decades, that have been looking at how do you create product that is functionally better but is also responsible, and talking about the usage and not the sale, and talking about the community and not like the gain of financial gain that you can get out of your consumer. No, it's about like the real relationship. And I think brands need to look at it in a different sense.
But yeah, I think absolutely the real future is definitely going to depend on the decisions we make as brands and organizations. Bora, thank you so much for that. It was really wonderful, and let's stay in touch.
And thank you very much. For now, I'm gonna dive back into the and clean up. But thank you very much for your time and for the invitation. And I'm wishing you all the best and hope to see you soon.